All right. We are live. Pardon the screen orientation. There we go. And welcome to another Space Weather edition. Doing it live again. Thanks for joining us, viewers. Looking at the sun on 171 angstroms here, we see this active region rising, not to be confused with the sunspot. We see no umbral core in there, and so not a sunspot. We do see some interesting filaments here in the northwest. Otherwise, we have a pretty low level of activity characterized by some diffuse coronal holes, which we'll look at in the 193 angstroms view. And let's move on to the real-time solar wind. Look at the last 24 hours here, if it loads. There we go. We see a phi angle of 345 degrees there. Solar wind density has dropped all the way down to 3.38 protons per cubic centimeter. And the solar wind speed at 420. 420 kilometers per second, that is. Look at some more data here. We'll head to spaceweathernews.com. A brilliant website, thanks to Ben Davidson. And we see the X-ray flux still really low. A couple little perturbations there at the end, undoubtedly coming out of that active region. Regarding this GOES magnetometer, I think we have a damaged satellite, folks, because that crazy dip we saw yesterday is still there. And for two satellites not so far away from each other to have that different of readings makes no sense. There's no way that the magnetic field swings 200 nanotesla between those two satellites. So there's something going on with the one represented by the red graph here. I'm not exactly sure which those are. The GOES satellites are all numbered. Anyway, there's the KP index, which is now at 3. Here's your rather outdated Cygnets forecast. We see the electron flux has dipped here. Looks like it's reached its apex. And maybe those satellites can have some chance to discharge here, as we see charging hazards all around the world internally. And we're even showing some external charging hazards now. Here's the F2 layer. And we see a slightly more charged portion than we saw yesterday. So there's that. And then let's see. Here's your auroras. Nothing too extravagant going on there. Let's look at volcanoes. Today's list includes Karimsky, which did produce a 13,000-foot ash plume. Also Dacono with a 7,000-foot ash plume. Explosive activity there. Fuego, possible volcanic ash exhalation. Revenador, emissions observed. Sab and Kaya, sporadic emissions. And Piton de la Fournaise. 2 more vents opened on the downhill eruptive fissure. And now there's 3 lava flows descending the slope of the Grand Brûlé, otherwise known as the Great Burn. So there's one to look. If you want to go check it out, head to Volcano YT on YouTube. I'm sure you can find videos there. And let's look at the earthquake situation. We did see a 5.4 off the coast of New Zealand yesterday, about, what was it, about an hour and a half after we did our stream. In any case, we see a 4.6 in Mexico there. Kind of at the northern tip of our standard warning range, which includes areas east and north of Australia up to Japan, and the western portion of South America and Central America. We see a deep quake in Indonesia at a 4.4, so that could be a harbinger for a low-level 5 quake at the surface. 4.6 in Indonesia, 4.6 in Tonga, 4.8 very far south in the South Sandwich Islands. I'll show you where that is. It used to be rare to see quakes that close to the poles, and now we see them at least once a week. And where were we? And that's about it. So earthquake watch continues. Solar activity is low. Moving on to the Gong 2 data, where we will see no crazy perturbations in the magnetic environment, indicating that data on the GOES magnetometer is erroneous. Now we do see some activity there in that active region. You see the little bulges coming out there to the left of where the Earth to Sun magnetic connection line are located. Right in this area. And yeah, so don't worry about the magnetometer, because it's not really doing what that magnetometer says. There's no possible way there's that huge of a magnetic disparity. Now let's look at the geospace magnetosphere movies. Should see some variations in the solar wind here, especially when it comes to the density. And we can see just from the still image here, from the pressure, that we're seeing much higher pressure on the magnetotail side than on the bow shock side. So here's the velocity. Hello, Manuela. And Nesnesgip, early riser. I'm located in eastern Pennsylvania. Here's the density. You can see lower density solar wind rolling in there from the left. So that's corroborating what we see on the real-time solar wind and so forth. It looks about the way you'd expect with the solar wind data that we see, and there's the pressure. And it's not surprising we have very low pressure on the leading edge here, aka the bow shock, and higher pressure on the magnetotail because the solar wind density is very low. And let's look at geospace ground perturbations here, as we do most days. You can see some significant perturbations there. Those of you not regular viewers, the Earth has 2 north poles right now. So you will see some evidence of that in this polar view. There is one North Pole over Canada, and there's one North Pole over Siberia. The one over Canada is weakening, the one over Siberia is strengthening. And meanwhile, the South Pole is moving toward Western Australia and toward India, into the Indian Ocean. Here's a view from the globe. We see pulses coming out of the Pacific Ocean there, west of South America, as we have on some other days. And you can see those pulses in the southern Indian Ocean there. Moving on to zooniverse.org, the Galaxy Zoo Project, one of the largest citizen science projects in the world. Just head to zooniverse.org, set yourself a login, There are other ones besides classifying galaxies, by the way, but for obvious reasons, our channel is focusing on this one. So let's just classify a galaxy to show new viewers what goes into it. And we have a fairly irregular galaxy here. Not an edge-on disk. Is there a bar? That's a good question. I don't think there's a bar on this one. Is there a sign of a spiral arm pattern? Well, I think there is. I see 2 spiral arms there, so we'll say yes. They are, we'll say they're medium wrapped. We'll say there's 2. Is there a bulge? Absolutely. How about small? I will say moderate. Is there a disturbance? I think there's some kind of a disturbance. We're going to say minor. And do we have any irregular features? We got lots of irregular features. It looks to me like we're actually going to say lens or arc, irregular, and dust lane, and overlap. And there you go. Galaxy classified. Here's the next one on the list. Looks like a giant elliptical galaxy. By the way, these things look awesome in radio frequency. Zooniverse.org. Classify galaxies. Let's go a little closer to home here. theplanetstoday.com. There you go. There's the location of the planets right now. By the way, if you get up before sunrise and it's clear enough, look to the ecliptic. You will see Venus just before sunrise. Not as bright as it was a couple weeks ago, but still very bright, as Venus does have phases. Let's advance this 1 week. As Mercury swings into conjunction. Head to theplanetstoday.com if you want to know where the planets are located at any given time. Next, let's look at Science Alert. I don't know what the article is until it loads because I got 16 tabs open. Oh, here we go. Looks like a global warming article, folks. Human beings are susceptible to boiling frog phenomenon, scientists warn. The world is getting dangerously hot, which I guess is why there's so much cold and snow, record-breaking snow in the northern hemisphere, early winters and late springs last year and this year. Apparently that's a sign of it being hot. Anyway, we'll leave links to the article after we finish the stream and get a chance to alter the description. And we'll also leave a link to this site, globalcryospherewatch.org, where we can look at the northern hemisphere snow cover. By the way, for those of you who know how a glacier's formed when snow falls and then doesn't melt, and then more snow falls and also doesn't melt. Here's the snow mass volume. By the way, the blue portion is the average from GlobSnow SWE from the years 1982 to 2012. Now you see how far off the graph it is. We're talking about nearly 500 gigatons of extra snow in the northern hemisphere there. Let that one sink in. If you think the planet's warming, sorry. Here's a phys.org article. Silicon carbide stardust and meteorites leads to understanding of erupting stars. That's right. The article is going to try to tell you that only certain stars go into a nova stage. That these must have come from some white dwarf that was around the solar system area at an earlier time, and it couldn't have been produced within our solar system or anything like that. As you know, when I took astronomy, I was not aware that a lot of astronomical organizations either believe or will tell you they believe that the sun doesn't nova. And I just assumed that the sun novaed because I figured every star must nova. But it turns out some folks don't believe that, or they don't want you to believe that. So, in any case, what we're suggesting here is that maybe this stuff came from the sun. Regular viewers are well aware that the solar wind contains all elements on the periodic table. So, Manuela, the magnetometer, the GOES magnetometer is located at the F2 ionosphere layer. So both of those satellites are at the F2 layer. And there's no way that that one is returning good data. Anyway, they're studying silicon carbide because it's very resistant. In other words, it doesn't degrade much while floating around in space on a meteor. And yeah, so they're going to talk about white dwarfs, and ultimately stellar evolution is not understood. Let's just leave it at that and move on. We got 2 articles here from Zero Hedge. Greenpeace co-founder rips pompous little twit Ocasio-Cortez as garden variety hypocrite on climate. By the way, if you're poor, she still wants to raise your taxes, folks. Greenpeace founder Dr. Patrick Moore has been an ongoing spat with New York Democratic Socialist Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez over the overly ambitious Green New Deal that could quadruple the national debt. Anyway, he's split with Greenpeace, and now he refers to himself as a sensible environmentalist. Unlike this lunatic over here who wants to tax the hell out of you and tank the economy. So we don't want to reduce carbon dioxide, by the way, because technically removing the carbon dioxide would mean removing all H2O, which would mean the eradication of all life on Earth. Thank you, Patrick Moore. Let's look at one other article here on Zero Hedge. I know there was another one I wanted to cover. Oh, here we go. Because we love Bernie so much on this channel, Bernie Sanders might be leading the polls in Iowa and New Hampshire, polls that typically limit respondents to likely Democratic primary voters, but chances Americans will embrace a 70-year-old Democratic socialist should he somehow win the nomination remain as uncertain as ever. Turns out only 25% of respondents ranked socialist as a desirable trait.
You don't necessarily need the choice of 23 different kinds of underarm spray deodorant or of 18 different pairs of sneakers while children are hungry in this country.
Bernie on economics. Let's look at some greener pastures. The Sky Scholar channel, which is one of our officially endorsed channels. If you head to youtube.com/smAsho, this channel will be there, hosted by Dr. Pierre-Marie Robitaille, somebody coming up with observational theories for how things like stars work, how they're formed, what they're made of, etc. Let's just show you a little clip here. How about the solar spectrum explained? By the way, it can't be explained by a gaseous plasma. And since the sun is our Rosetta Stone of astronomy, since the sun is our Rosetta Stone of astronomy, not understanding the sun means we don't understand other stars either. Let's just play a clip here. I don't know what it's going to be. Take it away, Dr. Robitaille.
Observational astronomers refuse to accept the idea that the sun can be treated as a gas. Eventually, though, under the pressure of increasingly complex theoretical models, they yielded to the idea. However, they should have held their ground.
The problem here is that the sun is not made of a gaseous plasma. It's made of condensed matter. And Dr. Robitaille has at least 40 different proofs. If you want to search for the sun on trial, in fact, I'll show you that article too. I've got it saved right on my desktop. For 150 years, the sun has been seen as a gaseous object devoid of a surface. Except an object devoid of a surface could not possibly emit a continuous spectrum as the sun does. We'll put links to this article. It's a few years old, but it's well worth it. By the way, we also own the domain smAsho.com, so have a visit. We have not had any time to build the site yet, so really it's just some links. If you find yourself able to put a comment up there, go ahead. Otherwise, just check out our links. And it's about time to wrap up the live stream, folks. Let's give you another view here. How about the 304 angstroms? Not sure how many viewers we have. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. We're going to try to make another video this afternoon if possible. Hopefully just on the PC, in which case the screen will be cropped and we're going to get back to making produced videos again. We promise. So there's your 304 angstroms view. Nothing too extravagant going on there. We'll zoom in on that active region. Thanks, Manuela, and you. It's about time to go shovel snow. I think we got about 6 inches last night, possibly more. And the trees are all buckled. And yeah, it should be an interesting day. Traffic won't be too bad. Remember, when you're learning how the sun really works, don't drink. And if you drink, learn how the sun really works. And don't drive. Thanks, Nesnisgip. Nesnisgip. That's a great name, by the way. Have a delightful day. Don't accept any wooden nickels. And if there's snow all over the roads, don't drive.